What's up guys, this is NR Station and welcome back to another reaction video. Today's video I'm going to be reacting to 20 Spider Man Multiverse versions that we want to see from Spider-Man Not From Home, or whatever it is. I've seen Spider-Man Far From Home, and so I can't wait to see what kind of 20 Spider-Man Multiverse versions we're going to see. So let's find out, shall we? Let's go.
In the dead of night, at the scene of the crime, and the speed of light, he'll arrive just in time. But which Spider-Man you get depends on what reality you reside in.
Oh, really?
Stan Lee has created a lot of iconic characters, but none of them have captured the imagination quite as much as the one he created with Steve Ditko.
Really?
The teenager from Queens who got a bite from a
gosh.
spider gained superpowers, but still had to live a very...
Actually, I think this guy looks a lot similar to Germy from iCarly, or as we like to call him, Germy. You know, because he sneezes a lot and doesn't cover his mouth. He always gets a cold. Whatever. This guy does not look a lot like Germy, actually. I think he's one of Peter Parker's friends. I forgot what his name was. Tell me what his name was in the comments below.
unsuperpowered life. Stan Lee maintained that the popularity of the character was that under the mask, any one of us can be Spider-Man. While Peter Parker is the Spider-Man we all know, there have been a few others behind the mask, and here are some of the Peters and non-Peters who have worn the mask.
Really?
Perhaps the most well-known alternate Spider-Man is Miles Morales.
You know, I'm hoping to get the book Miles Morales by Jason Reynolds, because I hear Venom Soul Eater has that book. So I'm hoping to get that book for maybe on Amazon. Once I get an Amazon gift card. Never mind, let's keep going.
Whose story was featured in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
And actually, the book Spider-Man Into the... Actually, the book Jason Reynolds' Spider-Man... No. In Miles Morales' Spider-Man, the book was based... Yeah, the movie Spider-Man based in... Sorry, excuse me. The movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was probably based off of the book by Jason Reynolds, Miles Morales. Yeah, based on the book based on Jason Reynolds' book, Miles Morales. Yeah.
Miles Morales comes from the Ultimate Universe, also known as Earth 1610.
1610! That's so cool.
How Earth 1610 came into being in our universe is complicated. In our universe, the Ultimates was a line of comics meant to refresh the Marvel characters who have been running since the 60s. Some characters got whole new looks, like Nick Fury.
Oh, Spider-Man Far From Home! I saw that movie in theaters! Goodness gracious! How did I not know that?
And some characters' world expanded a bit. Running from 2000 to 2015, when Secret Wars collapsed parts of the multiverse, the Ultimates line influenced a lot of the look of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great.
In that universe, a second spider slipped the lab, this time biting the nephew of the Prowler, giving him all the regular spider powers as well as the ability to camouflage and shoot stun blasts.
Oh.
The animated feature film featuring Miles Morales also had one of the best scenes in a superhero movie. That leap of faith sequence is just so good. Another runaway success from the Spider-Verse comes a little closer to home for Peter Parker. The love of Peter's life we all know is Mary Jane Watson.
Mary Jane Watson. That's so cool.
But she wasn't Peter's first love. Before there was MJ, there was Gwen Stacy.
You know, I'm not sure. Who did Kirsten Dunst play in Spider-Man? Was it Mary Jane Watson or was it Gwen Stacy? I forgot. I'm not really sure because I haven't rewatched any of the Spider-Man movies from the 2000s very much. So tell me who Kirsten Dunst played in the Spider-Man movies.
That relationship ended when Green Goblin dropped both Stacy and a trolley full of people at the same time. Peter's attempt to save both ended up fatally injuring Gwen, and she became another tragic thing Peter got to carry around with him.
Oh no!
Over in Earth 65, Gwen was fronting her own garage band and hanging out with her bestie Peter when she got the spider bite that changed her world.
Ouch. But that would be pretty awesome, but couldn't the spider bite be less painful for something? Like, couldn't it feel like, I don't know. Spider bites can be pretty painful, you know?
When Peter tried to get into the superpowers game, he turned himself into the Lizard. Gwen would end up accidentally killing Peter in his lizard form, only for him to revert so that it appeared Gwen had killed Peter Parker for no reason.
Ugh! That is not good!
If you're gonna wear the spider suit, you gotta take on some of the sad.
Excuse me.
In the 1930s, a lot of movies were made that revolved around gangsters, private eyes, and people up to no good. These films were lit in the style of earlier German cinema, with harsh contrasts and often featured simile-riddled narration and dialogue.
I have never seen The Big Sleep.
In the 1950s, a bunch of French film critics watched all of those movies and, identifying their stylistic cues, dubbed them film noir. It is in this world that Earth 90214 got its Spider-Man. This time, in fitting with the style of pulp fiction of the time, the spider bite comes from a spider totem that grants Parker his powers via a spider god.
Oh my gosh, that sounds crazy.
Union busting and crime bosses play a much bigger role in the Spider-Man noir world, with his look coming from his father's World War I airman uniform. Another entry from the Edge of the Spider-Verse stories that answers the question, what if power suits? Penny Parker from Earth 14512 has a lot of the familiar beats, an Uncle Ben and Aunt May, as well as a bitey radioactive spider.
Whoa, that'll be awesome.
This time, however, the spider is her co-pilot in her family's spider suit. A
Really?
powered suit of armor with some of the usual Spider-Man powers on top of being a big giant robot suit.
A robot suit, that'd be awesome.
Before the Spider-Verse was a thing, there was still an alternate Spider-Man from the weird end of the multiverse. Of course, we're talking about Peter Porker, the Spider-Ham.
That's a pig, you know?
Created in 1983 as a bit of self-parody, Spider-Ham proved popular enough to eventually star in his own semi-regular comics under Marvel's children-oriented Star line of comics.
Really? So this Peter Porker, aka the Spider Pig, that's what I'm gonna call him, because it reminds me of that Simpsons movie, Spider Pig, does anything that a spider can. Yeah, that sounds a lot similar to Spider Pig from the Simpsons movie. You know, when Homer Simpson was just playing around with the pig, pretending the pig was climbing on the ceiling. That's so funny.
Peter Porker inverts the formula a bit, where Peter begins his story as a spider that belongs to May Porker, a pig trying to bring fusion power to the beauty industry.
See, I was right! Peter Porker is a pig! Actually, we all know that, you know?
The end result is when she tries her nuclear-powered hairdryer, she ends up irradiating herself and then biting Peter and turning him from spider to pig.
Ouch.
If Spider-Man Noir answered the question of what if Spider-Man happened in the past, then Spider-Man 2099 Spider-Man Noir answered the question of what if Spider-Man happened.
Yeah, I missed it again. Let me pick it again.
Of what if Spider-Man
PBBTHPBBT. Or
happened in the past, then Spider-Man 2099 answered the question of what if Spider-Man, but in the future. Part of a line of 2099 titles that postulated a Marvel Universe 100 years on, this Spider-Man is Miguel O'Hara. Miguel was slipped a poison that was meant to make him reliant on an antidote as a blackmail scheme, but ended up taking a formula meant to replicate Spider-Man's powers.
Oh my gosh, that sounds fucking crazy.
Which it did. In a little bit of Back to the Future magic, Miguel ended up being his own
Back to the
take up
Future.
the Spider mantle.
I've always wanted to have one of those.
Future came into question during the Secret Wars event that resulted in Miguel landing in our time and slow-boating back to 2099 to tell his younger self to become Spider-Man to protect the future.
You know, imagine this. In the Back to the Future movies, you could probably have your own time machine, kind of like the DeLorean time machine that Marty used in Back to the Future, who was played by Michael J. Fox, a.k.a. Alex Keaton from Family Ties. Anyway, why am I making all these references for this video? It doesn't matter. I like to make up I just like to use random topics for no reason.
Past. Both. Kinda. I don't know. Miguel isn't the only time-hopping member of the family with a fondness for the spider look. Miguel managed to pass down a passion for living in whatever moment his son felt like living by becoming a time traveler.
A time traveler? That's what I want to be! I wish I could be a time traveler, but instead I could travel through movies. Imagine if I could be able to have the power to like travel through my favorite movies, like High School Musical, iCarly, The Parent Trap, you know, the one with Lindsay Lohan in it, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I'm going for the High School Musical and iCarly references. So yeah.
A lot of that comes down to traveling to our time and teaming up with various members of his family also displaced by time.
So imagine this. I'm going to be writing a book soon called My iCarly High School Musical Adventure. So I'll let you know when it's done. So I'll probably read the first 3 chapters in the first 3 parts of the video. Part 1 will be chapter 1, part 2 will be chapter 2, and, well, you get the point. Anyway, let's keep going.
Gabriel has no spider powers of his own, leaving most of that to his dad's spider suit. He also created the not-at-all nightmare-inducing arachnauts, a swarm of tiny robot spiders Gabriel can control.
Ugh, spiders. You know, getting bitten by a spider is no fun, because what if you get sick and die? I mean, the truth is, what? If I get bit by a spider, will it really make me have superpowers like Spider-Man did when Peter Parker became Spider-Man? Not! Let's keep going.
Freaky. There was a lot of fallout when Spider-Man failed to save Gwen Stacy.
Oh, I saw that movie in theaters, The Amazing Spider-Man 2! That was a great movie!
And that includes rival the Jackal blaming Spider-Man for her death. The Jackal dealt with his feelings in a completely normal and rational way. He cloned Peter Parker, as you do.
Jackal?
After that goes predictably bad.
Oh gosh.
There's a bit of switcheroo with some bodies that makes Peter think that his clone is dead, while his clone takes the name of Peter's uncle and the maiden name of his aunt, Ben.
Oh, Disney ABC domestic television, that's cool.
Riley. Ben Riley tries the whole bumming around thing, but that sense of responsibility is hard to avoid even if you're a copy of Peter Parker. And when he came back to New York to check on Aunt May, he started life as the Scarlet Spider, working with the original. Or is he? There was a bit of confusion of which was the original Peter Parker. Clone or original, when Peter hung up his web shooters during Mary Jane's pregnancy, Ben Riley took the mantle for a while. If Spider-Ham, time travel, and clones aren't weird enough for you, then there's the strange case of the Sum Sum. They're small, they're kinda cute, they multiply when they sneeze for some reason, and they're able to imitate the powers of whoever they want.
Sum Sum?
One of the Sum Sums saw Spider-Man on TV.
Hey, I just saw that movie! And there's Zendaya! From Casey Undercover! You know, from Disney Channel. Zendaya is also a great singer.
And did what we all did when we first saw Spider-Man. Got some Spider-Man thermals and ran around the house pretending to be Spider-Man.
You know, I just saw this movie in theaters, Spider-Man Far From Home, and then I watched it again on DVD, but I don't have the DVD, guys. But I'm hoping to get it.
The Sum Sum started imitating Spider-Man powers and all. Well, until someone tried to get him to imitate Ultron. But
Ultron? Oh snap.
Once you've gone Spider-Man, that sense of responsibility is hard to shake. And he went back to being a tiny, adorable Spider-Man.
Oh, Sum Sum! I've seen those commercials before on TV.
One of the first things that anyone thinks about when they think of spiders, aside from, oh, get it off, is...
Was that? Whoa. Was that a scene from Harry Potter?
First thing that anyone thinks about when they think of spiders, aside from, oh, get it off.
Exactly! This is from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets! Oh my god.
Get it off! Is the number of legs. But when you add up the limbs on old Parker, you get the standard 4, not 8. Without the 8 legs, are you really a Spider-Man or just Sticky Guy?
I'm not sure.
Perhaps the weirdest attempt to put the spider in Spider-Man was a villain from the cartoons, Zoltan Amadeus. Zoltan created a serum to recreate Spider-Man's powers, which worked for a moment, and he was able to go on a crime spree as a fake Spider-Man. Then the serum decided to get literal with the whole spider thing, giving him a lower body that's all spider.
Ew, that is disgusting.
Ooh, get it off, it's in my hair! While Marvel didn't find its feet until the Silver Age, it went from Atlas to Marvel, and Stan Lee started steering the company. It still had a long history of Atlas and timely comics. In 1947, that comic line created its own Spider-Man.
Oh,
and if Zoltan Amadeus wasn't nightmare fuel enough, then this Spider-Man as villain might fit the bill. Like Gabriel O'Hara, this vintage villain had a small army of spiders that he was experimenting with.
What a witch.
Oh, and he's feeding them human blood.
Help! They're smelling my blood! They're after me! Stop!
He would capture his victims with elaborate artificial webs that eventually would lead to his downfall.
Wow, this guy's evil. He almost looks like a male witch.
Of all the people who have mantled up as Spider-Man or Spider-Man adjacent, the ones we can identify with the most are the super fans.
Oh, the super fans are cool.
Martha Franklin didn't have that much of a connection to Peter Parker, and no sketchy run-ins with spiders, radioactive or otherwise.
Oh!
Her powers came from the weird stuff her parents were into when she took her dad's place at the Gathering of Five, where old relics dole out monkey paw-esque gifts with all kind of weird catches. Franklin wound up with superpowers, but instead of starting her own franchise, she filled in for Peter Parker when he went missing for a bit, then took over Spider-Woman for Jessica Drew.
Really?
If there's one thing that WandaVision has taught us, it's that superheroes having kids can be a super hard thing. Ben Parker was the second child for the power couple, with their teenage daughter already manifesting powers and saving the universe.
What a cute
After a run-in with Carnage where the symbiote bonded with the baby, little Ben's powers kicked into overdrive, which would see him crawling on ceilings before he could walk.
Really?
The parents of this reality, Earth 962, died protecting him, and he was whisked away by Spider-Girl. It turns out that the reason there was all these different Spider-Men and Spider-Women is because realities all have a spider totem, and little Benji, well, he was the strongest one of all.
Benji? Cool.
Spider-Man seems like he's always been, and a part of that is how quickly the character caught the imagination of the world. Introduced in 1962, by 1967 Stan Lee was consulting on a half-hour Spider-Man cartoon following the 7-minute Marvel Superheroes cartoon.
Oh my gosh.
The animation was simple, and after Stan Lee stepped aside and Ralph Bakshi started producing it, it contained less and less iconic Spider-Man villains, and more generic villains, suspiciously similar to Bakshi's previously Rocket Robin Hood. None of that matters as much as the theme song though, which is one of the most recognizable superhero themes ever written. Does whatever a spider can. Come on everybody, you know it!
Spider-Man,
Crude and recycled
Spider-Man,
animation aside,
does
the
anything that a spider
Spider-Man
can.
was iconic. But in the 90s, a different kind of shared universe was emerging. Marvel's mutants had made it to the TV, with their own rocking and immediately recognizable theme.
X-Men, huh? That's cool.
When the X-Men universe crossed over to Spider-Man, the animated series, it became a shared universe.
OMG.
It's also perhaps the most faithful of the adaptations. All the beats are there. Gets bitten by a special spider, in this case one being experimented on for healing properties. Misuses his powers at first, then the advice and tragedy from Uncle Ben. There's even an Insidious 6. Sinister apparently didn't work for the cartoon. And, of course, the Venom symbiote. There are some Spider-Mans, men, whatever, that just defy explanation, and one of those is the Spider-Man from across the ocean in Japan.
Oh my gosh.
It's so bizarre, in fact, that Disney led with the story in their 616 series that explores the history of Marvel. The story goes that an eager comics fan on vacation to Japan found two things. The Japanese loved comics, and there were no Western comics.
You know, I wish I could be able to get an actual Spider-Man costume that whoever wore that costume in The Amazing Spider-Man from the 2010s. I forgot what his name was. Tell me in the comments below before I forget.
So he brokered a deal where Marvel and Toei would share characters. In that process, Japan got to produce their own show, but were allowed to change it to fit the Japanese market. Naturally, this meant giant robots and a slick car called the GP7.
GP7? That's impressive.
The show had one important fan, Stan Lee.
Iron
Rather than
Man.
being precious with his creation, Stan the Man was elated with how much like a comic book the show looked, even if most of Spider-Man's story was tossed out of the window. If Stan Lee was elated with the Japanese series, it was in part because he wasn't thrilled with the 1977 television outing for Spider-Man. While it's a bit of a golden age of comic book adaptations now, with one network airing no less than 5
Falcon
superhero
and the
shows
Winter
at one
Soldier.
time at one point, this isn't the first time that the airways was crowded
The
with tapes.
Incredible
In the
Hulk.
70s, Marvel and DC squared off with two popular adaptations as TV
Wonder
shows,
Woman.
The Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman. Hoping to swing in on that action was Spider-Man. Unfortunately, this one didn't quite catch on. Even worse, complications with the rights to Spider-Man adaptations held up the making of a proper Spider-Man movie for decades.
Oh.
When those rights were finally sorted out and Spider-Man made it to the screen, it was an adaptation that, along with the X-Men over at Fox, it was credited with saving the superhero movie from an early death. That early death came in the form of Batman and Robin.
Got away.
Enough said. The movie was helmed by longtime comic fan and stylistic filmmaker
MTV
Sam Raimi.
News.
More known for his horror movies, but also created Darkman when he was denied the chance to do a movie about the pulp hero The Shadow.
Oh,
Raimi's
God.
adaptation featured the ever boyish-looking Tobey Maguire and a picture-perfect...
Oh, Tobey Maguire! That's who... Yeah, I wish I could get the same costume that Tobey Maguire used in the Spider-Man movie. You know, the one where he wore the Spider-Man costume.
Cast. One big change, however, was Parker's organic web shooters. Traditionally, the web shooters were the invention of the young genius Peter Parker, but in this case, it came out of him. Kinda gross. Spider-Man 2 has gone on to be one of the best regarded superhero movies ever. Unfortunately, Spider-Man 3 does not have that level of affection, and the Raimi-Maguire series ended there. Rather than move forward with Raimi's fourth Spider-Man entry, Sony decided to reboot the character in the hopes of getting some distance between jazz-dancing Peter Parker and a lackluster Venom. The result was The Amazing Spider-Man. This one swapped Mary Jane for Gwen Stacy, gave Peter his mechanical web shooters back, and leaned in more on later stories, where it's revealed that Peter's parents were involved in the super science game themselves. A second movie, meant to set up the Sinister Six and a wider Spider-Verse, didn't get the reception that Sony was hoping for, and those plans quietly went away. There has been a list of luminaries that have taken the mantle of Spider-Man temporarily for different reasons. Some were covering, some were villains trying to smear Spider-Man's name or prove they could do it better. Here's a roll call of some of them who were traded their masks for
Oh my
Spideys.
gosh.
Craven, Otto Octavius, Matt Murdock, Danny Rand, Mary Jane, Wade Wilson, Bruce Banner, in a weird way, Norman
Bruce Banner
Osborn,
is the
Loki, Kamala
whole.
Khan, Quentin Beck, Matt Gargan, Logan, Flash Thompson, William Braddock, kinda, Harry Osborn, and of course, Stan Lee himself.
Yeah.
Sony's loss with The Amazing Spider-Man turned out to be a big win for fans everywhere, and a win-win situation between Disney and Sony. While Marvel was absorbing Fox like a gelatinous cube to get the rights to X-Men and Fantastic
Save
Four
the
back,
whales.
they tried a more diplomatic channel with Sony and instead offered shared custody. Sony would produce a new pair of Spider-Man movies with Disney, and then that
Oh my
Spider-Man could
gosh.
show up in Marvel movies like Civil War and the last two Avengers movie.
I'm thinking Paramount should team up with Marvel Comics. Wait. If they did, let me know. Because I'm not sure.
This deal was too good to be true when it almost came to an early end with Spider-Man Far From Home ending on a cliffhanger. A little drunk dialing from Tom Holland got things back on track.
Oh, Tom Holland! That's the one from the 2010s. Besides, Tom Holland's costume of Spider-Man, this Spider-Man costume would be so cool to wear that Tom Holland wore. But apparently they're so expensive! If you ever get a costume like that from a costume designer online.
And now good old Tommy returns as Spider-Man in a third MCU movie next year. After
Really?
2 reboots and one of the most recognizable origin stories in comics, the MCU have done away with the origin story, and instead have gone with the youngest portrayal of Peter so far.
Oh,
and let's
shoot.
not kid ourselves, the best one. We love you, Tom!
Okay, so if you like what you saw, turn on the subscribe button. Smash the like button. Subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll be able to know when I post a brand new videos. Thank you for watching.